Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever thought about what made Bellatrix Lestrange so insanely devoted and terrifying? What if her madness had a logical explanation rooted in deep psychological wounds? In today's video, you will find out the shocking truth behind her descent into darkness. The world of Harry Potter is filled with unforgettable characters. Some are noble heroes, others complex and layered, and then there are those who leave a lasting impression as villains. Bellatrix Lestrange was not just another Death Eater, she was Voldemort's most fanatical follower, a witch whose very presence radiated chaos. Played brilliantly by Helena Bonham Carter in the films, Bellatrix was more than just a servant of the Dark Lord. She was a force of destruction, a zealot who sometimes even outmatched Voldemort himself in her ruthlessness. But why was she like that? What made her so erratic, so violent, so completely unhinged? Let's dive into her past and uncover the truth. Born into the prestigious House of Black, Bellatrix was raised with a deep sense of superiority. Her family saw themselves as pure-blood aristocracy, looking down on Muggleborns and even other wizards who didn't share their beliefs. From childhood, she was taught that power and bloodline mattered above all else. At Hogwarts, she was sorted into Slytherin, where she mingled with future Death Eaters like Lucius Malfoy. But while others hesitated, Bellatrix embraced Voldemort's ideology without question. She didn't just follow him, she worshipped him. Her loyalty knew no limits. She tortured Neville Longbottom's parents into insanity, never betrayed Voldemort even in Azkaban, and returned to his side the moment she escaped. Until her final breath in the Battle of Hogwarts, she remained his most dangerous enforcer. But what truly made her this way? Some believe it was Azkaban. Years spent in the wizarding prison, surrounded by Dementors, could have shattered what little sanity she had left. The constant exposure to despair and darkness might have turned her into something even more monstrous than before. Others point to unrequited love. Yes, Bellatrix was obsessed with Voldemort, not just as a leader, but as a man. While she was married to another Death Eater, it was Voldemort she truly loved. But he was incapable of love, and her desperate need to prove herself to him only drove her deeper into madness. She committed atrocities, hoping to earn his approval, but all she ever received was cold indifference. There's even a controversial theory that Bellatrix bore Voldemort's child Delphi, as introduced in The Cursed Child. But whether or not that's canon remains up for debate. One thing is certain, Bellatrix Lestrange was not just a villain. She was a tragic figure consumed by devotion, madness, and a desperate need for validation. And that, perhaps, is what makes her one of the most chilling characters in the Harry Potter universe. Bellatrix Lestrange was a product of her environment, but she was also something more. Unlike many other Death Eaters, she didn't just follow orders, she enjoyed them. Her madness was not just an unfortunate side effect of Azkaban or unrequited love. It was something that had been growing inside her for years. From the moment she aligned herself with Voldemort, there was no turning back. She had found her purpose, and that purpose was destruction. Her obsession with power was evident in every action she took. She didn't just fight for Voldemort, she relished the opportunity to prove her worth. While others feared his wrath, Bellatrix craved his approval. She lived for his praise, no matter how little he gave. When he barely acknowledged her, she only tried harder. When he dismissed her, she pushed herself further. And when she saw others, like Severus Snape, gain his trust, she burned with jealousy. Her descent into madness was gradual. At first, she was a young woman driven by ideology, convinced she was fighting for a cause. But as time went on, that cause became an excuse, The line between loyalty and obsession blurred. It wasn't just about pure blood supremacy anymore. It wasn't about wizarding traditions or the world Voldemort promised. It was about him, his vision, his power, his ability to control her in a way no one else ever could. In the early days, Bellatrix was dangerous but contained. She had purpose, discipline, and skill. She was an expert duelist, a master of the dark arts, and a warrior with unmatched ferocity. But after Voldemort's fall, something inside her snapped. She refused to believe he was truly gone. While other Death Eaters pleaded for mercy, she stood her ground, refusing to betray the man she had dedicated her life to. When she was dragged to Azkaban, she held her head high, knowing she had remained loyal. But loyalty comes at a price. Azkaban was a place that broke people, and Bellatrix was no exception. The Dementors fed on her devotion, turning it into a twisted kind of desperation. Every day was torture, not just from the prison itself, but from the reality that Voldemort might truly be gone forever. It wasn't just suffering, it was unbearable emptiness. Without him, she was nothing. And so to survive, she clung to the belief that he would return. When the breakout finally happened, she emerged from Azkaban changed. The composed, cunning woman who had once strategized for Voldemort was gone. What remained was something more erratic, more unpredictable, more violent. She had been dangerous before, but now she was unstable. The fire that once burned inside her had become an uncontrollable inferno. Her reunion with Voldemort was both a triumph and a tragedy. He had returned just as she always knew he would, but something was different. He did not greet her with warmth. There was no gratitude, no sign that he had missed her loyalty. To him she was a tool, a weapon to be used. And yet that was enough. If he needed her to kill, she would kill. If he needed her to suffer, she would suffer. If he needed her to die for him, she would do so without hesitation. But deep down, there was something even more terrifying about her madness. It was infectious. Her presence in the ranks of the Death Eaters made them more reckless, more ruthless, more willing to cross lines they had once hesitated at. She led by example, showing them that true loyalty meant absolute devotion, no matter the cost. She killed without remorse, tortured without hesitation, and laughed in the face of suffering. She became Voldemort's executioner, the woman who did what others wouldn't. And yet, despite all of this, there was still a part of her that longed for something she could never have. No matter how many battles she won, no matter how much she proved herself, Voldemort never saw her as an equal. She was valuable, yes, but only as a servant. This was never more clear than in her final moments. The Battle of Hogwarts was chaos, but Bellatrix fought like a woman possessed. She had already lost so much. Her fellow Death Eaters, her family, even her sister Narcissa had begun to waver. But Bellatrix remained steadfast. Even as the tide turned, even as Voldemort's forces crumbled, she refused to accept defeat. Her duel with Molly Weasley was the moment that sealed her fate. It was not just a fight between two powerful witches, it was a battle between love and madness. Molly fought for her children, for a future free from darkness. Bellatrix fought for a man who had never truly cared for her. And in the end, love proved stronger. As she fell, there was no dramatic final plea, no realization of her mistakes. She died as she lived, laughing, unafraid, unrepentant. But for all her bravado, there was a tragic irony in her end. She had spent her life seeking meaning in Voldemort, but in the moment of her death, he didn't even notice. Her legacy is one of chaos and cruelty, but also of tragedy. She was a woman who could have been so much more, but she chose a path that led only to destruction. In her obsession, she lost herself completely, becoming nothing more than a shadow of the man she worshipped. And that, in the end, was her greatest tragedy. Bellatrix Lestrange was not just a villain. She was a warning, a reminder of what happens when devotion turns into madness, when love becomes obsession, and when the desire for power consumes everything in its path.